Hello, welcome to the REST API Monitor with OAuth 2 Client Credentials demo. WUG now supports OAuth 2 Client Credentials for authentication in REST active and performance monitors. OAuth 2 is the industry standard protocol for authentication and is quickly becoming a requirement for accessing resources online. With OAuth 2 support, WUG is now able to monitor more REST APIs. What can WUG do with OAuth 2? An often asked for feature is the ability to monitor Microsoft 365. Microsoft Graph is a REST API that enables access to Microsoft Cloud resources, including Microsoft 365. With OAuth 2 client credentials, WUG is now able to monitor Microsoft 365 via Microsoft Graph. First step is getting client credentials. So to do that, you need an app registration. You can do that in Azure, and that's how you get client credentials. Permissions needed can be granted to the application registration in order to permit access. Permissions required vary based on the APIs being accessed. And we've got a write-up on all of the steps I'm fixing to cover in this demo. So let's proceed. So this is the write-up for all that are interested. We'll make this available. First step is you have to start in Azure. So to do this, log into portal.azure.com, log in with the credentials that you have for your Microsoft 365 instance. From there, in the top search bar, search for app registration, and you should see this little blue guy right here. Click on him, and you're in app registrations. Click new registration. We need to give it a name. So WUG monitoring. This first radio button for single tenant is perfectly fine, and we leave the redirect URL blank. Click register. Now we need to grant this app registration permissions to access the Microsoft Graph API. So click add permission. We want Microsoft Graph, and this is going to be an application permission, so click that button. In the permissions box, search for report. And you'll have this option here. Click reports read all, and then click add permission. It's very important after you do this step that the permission is granted. You may or may not be able to grant this permission based on the permissions the user you're logged into Azure has. In this case, I do have full admin rights in Azure, so this grant admin consent I can click. If you don't have this option, please reach out to IT for your organization and have them grant the request. But I'm just going to click grant and click yes. And now this application registration has permissions to read the reports, and we can continue. Let's go in WUG and go to libraries, credentials, and let's create a new REST API credential. We need to change the authentication type to OAuth 2, and the grant type should be client credentials. Give it a name. For the token URL field, we're going to come back to our app registration, click on overview, and at the top of overview, we're going to click on endpoints. And these are all the endpoints that this application has. We want OAuth 2 token endpoint. So we're going to copy that. We're going to paste it in our token URL. Next, we need the client ID. Close the endpoint dialog. Right here in the top part is our application client ID. Copy that, paste it in here. For our client secret, on the left, click certificates and secrets. And then we need down here at the bottom under client secrets, click new client secret. give it a name. Of important note is this expiration field. Microsoft is obviously recommending 6 months as it shows here. You are free to choose whatever interval you desire, but bear in mind that whenever this expiration period happens, you will need to log back into the Azure portal and create a new secret and then update the credential in WUG with that new secret. So in this case, I'll leave it as 6 months, click add, and here is my new secret, and I will click copy. So again, in 6 months, when this secret expires, click new secret, generate a new one, copy the value, and paste it in here. Also note, this value that is shown right here will be blanked out and you won't be able to see it if you navigate away from this page. So be sure to copy it before you navigate away from this page. The last thing in the list for the credential is the scope. Since we are accessing the Microsoft Graph, there is a specific scope that is required, and I'm going to copy this, but this value is also included in the write-up, so just copy and paste it as is, but it's just pointing to the graph URL. And we are going to click Save. Next step is, now that we have the credential, we need to assign the credential to a device, and then we can begin monitoring resources on the graph. So we're going to close our credential library. We're going to go to My Network. In this case, I've already created the device for monitoring Microsoft Graph. You don't really have to have a device specifically for this. You can pick any device you have in your network, but it helps for organizational sake to pick one, make one device that is just kind of a placeholder for monitoring resources in Azure and Microsoft Graph. On the credentials page, you're going to want to assign your new credential. In this case, I already have one that I created ahead of time that we're going to continue to use, but make sure that this device has the credential that you just created. Next, we are going to set up our new APM profiles that we have created to make use of OAuth 2 client credentials. So we're going to go to Application Monitoring, Application Profile Setup, and in the application profiles, I have removed all the other ones just to highlight the 2 new ones that we've added. So you've got the Microsoft 365 mailbox usage quota and Microsoft 365 service status. So those are the new profiles we have set up. So I'm going to go to Monitored Applications. I'm going to pick the service status one first and select the device where you have assigned your new OAuth 2 credentials. In this case, that's my device. And it's going to test the profile, and you'll see some of these are reporting as failed, and that is accurate as of recording of this. There are a couple of advisories out for some of the 365 services, so they are reporting failed correctly. So that's the first one for service status. We're going to go through and do the second one, which is the mailbox usage quota. This just alerts you to if any of your users have exceeded quotas and are having their access to their accounts limited based on those quota exceeds. Click Next. And this is testing access to the 3 resources we have here. In this case, all of the users are within their quota, so everything returns success. And we'll click Save again. Now we can go to our application monitoring dashboard, and hopefully everything, well, our service status ones are showing up here in the list, and very quickly our other ones should appear in the list as well. But this concludes how to use OAuth 2 client credentials to monitor Microsoft 365. Thank you.